All right, welcome back. So we've gone through eighth notes, 16th notes, fills, how to play with music, all kinds of stuff. But everything we've done so far falls under the classification of what we call rock drumming. Now, a lot of times when I say rock drumming, people think like bands like AC/DC and stuff like that. But rock drumming is a whole circular style and a whole grouping of styles on drums. It means everything from reggae to gospel to metal to R&B. So that's one style of music and one way to play the drums. Now, what we want to do is we want to also introduce some of the other styles of music and show some of the differences of how they utilize the drum set. The first one is what we call Latin music. Latin music is very, very old music, and it's designed completely different than what rock music is. In rock music, a lot of times you might have noticed that we have our snare drum, which is what our backbeat is, on the 2 and the 4. That's kind of the dance pulse. That's kind of how all the music is based around, is that 2 and the 4. Doesn't mean that we always have to have the snare drum on the 2 and the 4, but a lot of rock music is based around that. Latin music, for example, though, has something completely different. They have what they call the claves, and there's 4 of them. So the idea behind Latin is we need to understand these 4 claves. We need to know what they are, when to use them, and how they differ. So the first one is called the 3/2 son clave. Now, it's called the 3/2 because if you look at the measures there's 2 measures. The first measure has 3 hits, the second measure has 2. That's why it's called the 3/2. Now, the son helps us identify that this is a stronger clave, just like we talked about with the bass drums on the 3 and versus the and 3. This is a strong clave. So what I do is I play on the 1, the and of the 2, the 4, and then the second measure on the 2, 3. So 3/2 son clave sounds like this. That's my strong 3/2 son clave. So to move on, what we have then is we have a 2/3 son clave. It's the exact same thing, but it starts from the 2 measure instead of the 3 measure. It goes. Same idea, starts from the second measure instead of the first. But it does make a difference. Just like if on rock drumming, if I played my snare drum on 1 and 3, it would technically work, but it would ruin the feel of that song. So it's very important to know whether you're playing in a 3/2 or a 2/3. Now, besides the son clave, they also have what's called a rumba clave. This is a weaker clave because what happens is instead of having the clave on the 4 of the first measure, it moves to the and of the 4, which creates a weaker feel. But once again, it's a 3/2 to start off with. So this is a 3/2 rumba clave. And then, of course, we've got the inversion of that, which is the 2-3 rumba clave. That's the 4 main claves. There are some other ones and there's some different variations on that, but really understanding these 4 claves really helps you understand the basic of Latin. And if you notice that our version is the 2-4, is much less complicated than the clave version, like say a 3-2. You can see that their beat design is a lot more complex. So stick with us. Up next, we're going to talk about how to utilize those claves and put them into the style of bossa nova.